Hello everyone, welcome to channel Qtomation. In today's session, we will see how to count or how to find the occurrences of element in a list. For example, let's say we have one list, my list, and that is having following number of elements. And we want to find out how many times 22 is repeated. So for example, in this list, if you see 1, 2, 3. So 22 is repeated 3 times, right? So 22 occurred 3 times in the my list. So we want to print output as 22 occurred 3 times. So x is equal to 22. So this is the element for which we want to check how many times it has occurred in the my list. Then it should print 22 occurred 3 times for x is equal to 22. Similarly, if I say, let's say if I want to check out how many times 55 has occurred. So 55 is 1, 2, 3, 4 times occurred. So x will be 55 and it should print output as 55 occurred 4 times. So now let's see programmatically how we can do that. So I am going to PyCharm. In PyCharm, let's create new file, Python file. So I am naming it as occurrence of element in list. So we have created Python file and let's use the same my list. I'm going to use this my list only. So let's define one list. So we will see three approach by which we can do. So I will show you the first approach. So let's define my list. So this is the my list. And now let's define x variable for which basically we want to check how many times this x has occurred. So x equals to 22. So we are going to check how many times 22 is occurred in the my list. After that, I'm going to use one more variable, let's say count. Initially, I will assign count value as 0. And now, I'm going to use one for loop. So, for element in my list, I will check. So, what it will do, it will check for each and every element. So, in the first iteration, it will take 22 and it will store in element, this element, right? And after that, I will just check if element value equals to x. If that value matches with x, then I will simply increase the count. Count equals to count plus 1. So I will just increase the count value. If that element, so for example, in the first iteration, it will take element value as 22. So if 22 value equals to x, that is again 22. So that is matching value, right? So that will increase the count by 1. So count will become 1 now. In the next iteration, it will assign 33 value to element and it will check if 33 equals to x, so it is not equal to x, so it will not increase the count value, so it will remain 1 only. Similarly, it will check for next element, it will check for each and every element until the last element, right? So whenever it finds the 22 value in the list, it will increase the count value by 1, right? And after that, I am going to simply print, let's say print. Now I am going to print the value of x first x, then comma, after that has occurred, again comma, count times. So count, then comma, and then times. So now let's run the file. Let's execute this program. So I'm just going to run this file. And if you see, right, so it is printing 22 has occurred 3 times. So that is 22 has occurred, count, that is this value 3 times. And what we can do, now instead of x equal to 22, I can simply again change this value. So let's skip 55. And again run the file. Let's run this file. So it will simply print 55 has occurred 4 times because in the list 55 has occurred 4 times. Right, so this is the one approach or first approach, and we are simply printing here that value, right? So what we are doing here, we are using for loop, and from the my list each and every element will be iterated. So first element will have 22 value, and then we are checking and we comparing with element, right, along with the x value. So if both the value matches, then we are increasing the count by 1. So for every occurrence it will increase the count by 1, and at the end it will simply, we are simply printing the value and how many times it has occurred in our my list. What we can do here, so we are printing this statement, right? We can simply write this print statement in another way as well by using format. So what I will do, I will simply again use print in double quotes. I'm just simply using curly braces, has occurred, again one more time curly braces, and then I'm using times. After that, what I'm doing, so let's say I'm using dot format, and in the format we can simply pass. So first curly braces of set is we want to represent by x, right? So I will just put x here, comma, and it should print how many times. So count value should come for second curly braces, right? So I will just simply put count here. So it will simply print. So again, let's run this file. So when we run this file, it will simply print again the same statement, right? 55 has occurred 4 times. This is the this print statement, and this is exactly similar as this one. So we are using format, and by using this format, we can also print 55 has occurred 4 times, right? So instead of this one, we can simply use this statement as well, right? So this is again the same, right? So this is the approach one. By using for loop, we have checked how many times specific element has occurred. Now this is the approach one. Now I'm going to show you one more approach. For that, I'm just commenting this code. Let's comment this code. And after that, I'm going to show you approach 2 is by using count method. Now again, I'm going to define my list. I'm simply defining my list one more time, the same list we are using. And after that, let's say x equals to 22. So this is the element for which we are going to check how many times it has occurred in the my list. So x equals to 22. After that, what I will do, I will again simply print this statement. Right, so I will simply print, and in instead of format x, so this will print how many times 22, and instead of count, what I will do, I will simply use my list dot count method, and in the count method we have to pass the element for which we want to check the occurrence, or we simply want to check how many times it has occurred. So I will simply pass the value of x here, right? So mylist.count, this method will return how many times x has occurred in mylist, right? So if we simply run this file now, so let's run or let's execute this file. So it will simply print 22 has occurred 3 times, right? So we can simply use mylist.count method. Now if I change value of x here, right? So let's use x equals to 55. So again, let's run the file. So when we run the file, it will print 55 has occurred 4 times. So mylist.count, it will check for 55 how many times it's repeated in my list, and that count it will print, right? So this is the approach 2. By using count method also, we can simply print how many times specific element has occurred in my list. Now there is one more approach. Now I'm going to show you one more approach. Let's see approach 3. Approach 3 is by using counter method, and it is by from collection basically. So using counter method, how we can do that, right? So I will comment this code, and again I'm going to redefine my list. Let's define my list, and before that we have to import one package. So I'm going to simply import from collections. We have to import counter, and after that we have defined my list here, and let's use the same print statement. Before that, I will just show you. For example, I'm going to define one variable, let's say dick, and it will store basically. I'm just going to pass counter. In counter, I'm just passing my list. So what it will print or what it will give. So we are storing counter of my list in dictionary variable. So it will return the dictionary. So dictionary is nothing but set of key and values. So if for this statement, it will simply print. If for this statement counter of my list, it will simply print how many times the element has occurred in the format of key and values. For example, we have seen that 22 is occurring 1, 2, 3 times. So it will simply print 22, which is occurring 3 times, comma. So this is the first set of key value pair, 22 and 3. So 22 occurred 3 times. Similarly, it will check for 33 as well. 33 is occurred 2 times, right? So it will key and value format. So again, this is again key and value pair. So 22 comma colon 3. This is again another pair. Similarly, it will check, or it will simply print for 55 as well. So it will print all the element in the format of key values, where key is that element and value is nothing but how many times it has occurred. So for 55, it will check 55 occur 4 times. So in this format, it will simply print. We can simply check that as well. So we can simply print, let's print dic variable which we have defined. So let's run this file. When we run this file, you can see here output, right? So this is the output of this print statement. So in the dic variable or dictionary, it is having following values. So it is printing following values, right? In the format of key and values. 55 occurred 4 times, 22 occurred 3 times, 33 2 times, 12 is occurring 1 times, 1 2 3 occurring 1 time. So this is storing all the in the format of key and values, right? So dictionary, it is showing all the values in the format of key values. Now I'm just going to remove this print statement. So from this variable, how we can print how many times specific x has occurred, right? So I will just again use this print statement, and instead of mylist.count, I will simply use dic of x. So we want to fetch the occurrence of x, right? So I will just pass the occurrence of x. So if we pass dictionary in this argument, if you are passing simply x, so it will check what is x here. So x is nothing but 22, right? So I am going to use x equals to 22. So we want to check how many times 22 has occurred, right? So what we are doing here, so we are simply using dictionary variable and counter method, in which we are passing my list. So it will simply store all this value in the format of key and values in dictionary variable, and from this dictionary variable we are passing again here, we are fetching the value for that specific x value, right? That is 22. So if you want to find out how many times 22 has occurred, so I am just passing dictionary, into that I am passing 22 value, that is x value. Now let's run this file. So we can simply see, right, 22 has occurred 3 times because x is 22. Now let's check x is equal to 55. So how many times 55 has occurred? So 55 is occurred 4 times. So this is one more approach, or third approach, by which we can use counter method from the collections, which will store all the elements in the format of key values, where key is element and value is nothing but how many times it has occurred. And from that we are simply fetching value of that specific x element, or the value for which we want to check how many times it has occurred. So this is the approach 3. By using, we can simply check how many times a specific element has occurred in a list, right? So far we have seen 3 methods, right? So we have seen, for by using for loop we can do that. We have used count method, and we have also used counter from collections as well, right? So thank you for watching. In the coming session we will see some more practice examples or practice programs of Python. Thank you everyone.